So the first thing I did here on a chart, now notice I'm running a HPT bar first of all, and I'm going to go through three of them here, HPT bars, 2 range and 4 range, and show you the difference in here, because where these algo bands print are going to be dependent on your bar size as well, because if you recall, what it's doing is it's analyzing what the institutions are doing, and it's picking up when their algorithms are kicking in, and then giving you areas of value. So the first thing I'm showing here is the 6E contract, and the indicator that you should work with if you want to follow along with me is the HP algo bands. Okay, it's not the HPT6 algo bands. Now you're going to continue to use the HPT6 algo bands in your trading. Again, that works. They work with the octopus as well. Okay, but for the purposes of doing this analysis, we're using a different indicator that's in your package, and it's called HP algo bands. All right, HP algo bands. Notice when you first put it up, the automatic level is selected. Now I don't know what level value you've got in here. I was working with it earlier, but once this is checked, it's then going to use the automatic value. Now why that's important is it's dynamically looking at the market bar by bar, and you want to use 12 days of data on this initially. So I looked at 12 days of data. I have 12 days of data loaded on the chart. I have the automatic, and if you look down at the bottom down here, this horizontal black line is the level at which it's going to fire the fact that the algorithms have kicked in based on this indicator. All right, this indicator is looking at what the institutions have been doing. Right now, the value is 31. And so when this value on this histogram gets to 31 or higher, you're going to get, in this case, a red line and an algo band. All right, and notice how this is moved throughout the session. If I go back to the pit open this, or not the pit open, but the European Open this morning, all right, as we were moving, our band level looks to be, it looks to be at like 31. Okay, then about almost 3 hours into the session, as it continued to do its analysis, it adjusted it up to 33, and then it went up to 34, dropped back to 33, back to 31, and that's where we're at right now, pretty much where we started this session. So it's dynamically looking at that. It's analyzing, again, what the institutions are doing. And notice every time this value got to the line and above, you got an algo band. All right. So that's how the automatic works. I'm going to show how to work the manual here in a minute. What I wanted to point out is you're going to get different values for different data series. Okay. Let's remember the current value here is 31 based on an HPT bar. But if I go to a 2 range, oops, wrong way. Remember, I want 12 days of data. If I go to a 2 range, and notice I'm running the 24/5 here, okay? I don't really want to see what goes on Sundays, because for the most part, the institutions are not running on Sunday. All right, now notice where we're at value-wise right now. We're at 14, roughly half of where we were before. So in other words, based on this bar, when the value gets above 14 currently, we're going to get one. If I go even deeper and I go to a 4 range, we have a much different value again. We're at 5. Okay, so Where the algo bands are and where the values are dependent upon the type of bar that you're using. And so the bottom line is, what is a good value for an HPT bar is not necessarily the same good value for a two range bar, and certainly not necessarily the same good value for a four range bar, and that just runs through. So in doing your analysis, you need to determine which bar it is that you want to follow. Okay, that's crucial to your determination. Now I'm going to go back to the HPT bars. Okay, those are the ones I like to work with, but doesn't mean you've got to do that. I'm going to go back to the HPT bars. All right, 12 days, and hit OK. All right, so we're currently at 31 on the value. Now, for some of you, you may want more. Some of you may want less. I personally think less is better. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to look every time. And this is not an exact science now when it comes to picking the best manual one. Okay, it's not an exact science when it comes to picking the best manual. There is a little bit of element of consideration in here. In the long run, it's not going to have that much of a difference. But what I'm looking at is this. Okay, I'm looking at this large value here. That's above 40. I'm looking at the large value here. That's a good one. Another potential large value here and here. So I'm looking for the outliers. Okay. What I've seen, I think I would be happy at this point in time with 40 as a value. Now also, if you take basically 20% or 25% of the current value and add that to the current value, in other words, or multiply the current value by 1.25, that's another good way to go about this, okay, if you want to be a little bit more conservative. So I'm going to change this now, and you're going to see I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to leave my level at 40. And you're going to notice when I reload this, a lot of these are going to disappear, okay? A lot of these values, for example, this one is not going to be here anymore. And this one is not going to be here anymore. So I'm going to reload. And you get, whoops, you get different values, okay? To me, this is pretty good. I try to basically get between 5 and 8 algo bands a day on a session. And so if we look at where we're at right here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so far. Don't forget the 6E is a long session. The other thing I wanted to point out is the band minutes. Okay, if you want to see, it's important what the shading is here. Okay, as far as what it's showing. The default, I believe, is either 60 or 59. And of course, this indicator is a little bit different than the HPT6 because the HPT6, if you put 60 minutes in there as far as the shading, it's going to continue to draw the horizontal line of the band across until you get a new one. So I just put 600 in here. That's 10 hours. So the band's going to continue to draw for 10 hours unless and until we get a new band. Okay, unless and until we get a new band. I think everybody's with me so far. Let me go to a 2 range. If you want to do the same analysis on a 2 range, remember 12 days of data. And I'm going to hit OK. Now remember, I'm running a manual here. I doubt if I'm going to get anything. If I do, it's going to be very limited, right? Very limited. However, if I go back here and look, 20 seems to be a pretty good value, but I don't know that for certain. Let's see what the automatic would be. So if I go to automatic, it's running at 14. It started at 20, and then we've dropped to 14. So automatic started at 20 and dropped. If you want a good value for the day, if you go back to see where we ended the previous day, we ended at 20. So take 1.25, a value of 25 might be a pretty good manual approach, okay? A value of 25. So I'll go back to here, go to 25, unclick this. You can trim that by a little bit if you want, and I'm going to reload. All right, so what does that give us? Coming out of the gate, this was our initial band here, followed up by this one. All right, now that only gives me 2, so in all probability, I would want to decrease that a little bit more. All right, in all probability, I would want to decrease that. I think in this case, I would stay with the automatic being 20 for the 2 range. That's a pretty good value. All right, I'm not going to do this for the 4 range. I'm going to go back to the HPT bars. I'll go back to what I had, which was 40. And I'm going to go back to the HPT bars. And now I'm going to see if there's any questions. So if there's any questions on how to do this manual analysis, if that's what you want. I'm going to just hold up for a second to see what we have. Any questions on how to do the manual analysis if that's what you want to do? We good? What's loaded in my octopus? Well, I have my octopus turned off right now. That's what I'm going to turn to next. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that there were no other questions here, okay? Point being, once you're happy with this, once you've done this analysis, you can go to your other chart and you can have the HPT6 algo bands up there, because that's the one that'll work with the octopus if you want it to work. It's also going to work with the mini trader. No, it's not just looking at, who asked me that question? Yeah, it's not just looking at that, Stephen. That's one of the components it's going to look at, but it's looking at a lot more. What's that, Patty? You said you see the 40 level below, but don't connect the dots to the settings. I'm not sure I follow what you mean by that. In other words, see the value here of 40? That's because it's manual. So every time this value gets above, we're going to get a new one. That's the combination. Okay. All right, so next question is, what's loaded on the octopus? So let's go to the octopus now. What I have is the DB Profit 2A. That's what I've been showing with the NASDAQ. So I'm going to go ahead and activate it on and activate it on. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply that, and then I'm going to reload it. Now this is going to take a little time to come up. No sound, right? All right, so I'll go back. Sorry, guys. That's what happens when I reload sometimes. I'll go back. Let's do the analysis. What I indicated was starting in the European session. This was our algo band. So you may have gotten caught initially on a little short trade here. Stopped out here, back to long, and then reversing to short and short. Short here, short, short again. We retrace back to the band. So when you retrace back to the band, you can get an entry as you break down below. Same thing here, down below. And then notice on the way back up, we had a long entry, and then that got reversed to short. Not reversed, but eventually out here, short, short, and long. The other thing you can do is once you have your long entry through here, you can, if you like to trade multiple entries in the same direction, because we're above the algo band, would be to take the blue entry. Okay? Any questions on that? And again, the signals are going to depend on where your algo bands are if you're following that, all right? There's a very simple way to trade the algo bands for some of you, and that is you just go long when it's above the band, you go short when it's below. That works very well by itself. I like adding additional filters though, because every once in a while you get into a little whipsaw condition, okay? Try to avoid that, but every once in a while it happens. But so, you can also trade just when we get short on the algo band, below it's short, short, it's short, it's long, and then it's short. That's another way to trade it. All right, another way to trade it. Now, I haven't shown this, and I can do this. If you just want to use the profit to indicator, all right, because remember what's happening on the octopus, on this template, the DB profit, it's using both profit 2 and profit 3, okay? Just a refresher, profit 2 is really looking for the real strong moves. The normal profit is just that. It's normal. It's not discriminating. And then the profit 3 indicator, the new one that came out last week or the week before, it's in between both of those. Okay, so it's uh, less sensitive than the profit, but more sensitive than the profit 2. If you want to just trade that by itself, and I'll show how to do that again, just turn off profit 2, turn it off, turn off octopus 2, and then I'm going to reload it. So this is another filter approach that you can take to this. And now remember, it's going to be all black arrows here, right? What we're going to show here is going to be all black arrows. So this is just running profit 3. So what are the entries? Long here, short here. We're still in a short condition, so it's still short. Still in a short condition, so it's still short. The utility of this is you're going to get a quicker move, a quicker turn off the profit 3. So got you short here instead of further down here. Got you long here instead of further up here. So that's your trade-off. Some of you might like that, okay? Is there anybody that doesn't see how to do that? Anybody who doesn't see how to do that? Okay, that's the analysis that I wanted to show. So just to recap, what we're doing is number 1, when you're running the algo bands, you can go automatic or you can go manual. Where the bands come in at and based on the calculations is dependent on the bar size that you're using. You're going to get HPT bars, 2 range or 4 range. I don't recommend going beyond 4 range. I just think that's too big of a bar and you limit too many things. Okay. Secondly, then, as far as doing the manual calculations are concerned, take a look at where your value line is on your automatic, right? That's going to be the value line down here running this indicator. And if you like, you can take 1.25 of that as a general rule, or you can eyeball, it's not, 1.25 is obviously more numerically statistically accurate than eyeballing something, but they both work well. You may want to go to 1.2 instead of 1.25 if you want to produce less. If you want to produce more, then you go to a smaller value. I don't recommend producing more because you don't want to overtrade. Once you have that value, you can use that for the entire session. You just take the value where you ended and use that with the percentage. Okay. Question: do I prefer manual or auto? I actually prefer manual, Casey, because I've been working with this a long time. People ask me, what are good values? I'll stick with what it's always worked here. You can check them out yourself. For Russell, it's generally 18 or 19 on a manual basis. For the NASDAQ, it was generally 22 to 24 on a manual basis. Now, these are for HPT bars we're talking about. I'm not talking about 2 range, not talking about 4 range, I'm talking about HPT bars. But again, that's strictly up to you. And again, as far as trading this is concerned, the simplest way to trade it, and the octopus can trade this, there's a template, there are templates here for algo bands to trade. Just the same way that everything else is triggered, there's templates to trigger these as well. Okay. You just need to make sure, and I don't want to get into this today because the videos cover this, but you just got to make sure that if you're running manual, that you have the proper inputs in there in the octopus so that it's not signaling trades where you don't want them. So turning back on that, you can trade the simple trade, close above, close below. Okay. You'll never miss a trade that way. Never. You're always going to be guaranteed of not missing the trade. Okay. If not, the second way to trade it is using the double profit. You can also use the accelerator. And as I showed here, you can use the double profit, but it's kind of a misnomer because then what you're doing is turning off profit 2 and just running profit 3. And again, you can control the settings on profit 3. I'm using what's in the template, right? I'm using 0.1 and minus 0.1. You could go to 1 and minus 1 or 0.5 and minus 0.5, but I just keep it simple. And I turn off the second entry. Now I could turn the second entry on. Let's just see what we have. Okay, I haven't really looked at this because I don't normally want to confuse things, but let's go ahead and reload it and let's see what our blue arrows and red arrows show. 60 and dollar index, Hermine. I can't give you a good answer. Hermine's question is what manual levels are good here. I just saw it here as we did this analysis on 6E, right? Right now, currently, a good manual value is going to be 40. That's a good manual. Tomorrow it could be 38, but what you want to look at is the end of the day where your automatic would end out at. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. But let me show this first. Okay, so I went ahead and I activated the blue arrows on here as well. Okay, so you could see this was a trade here and a trade way up here. All right, if we move back, we had an initial trade here and another one here. If I'm going in the overall direction here, we had our first trade here. Trend was still down. Second one here. So that might be beneficial as well. It's another way to look at it. So that's a nice combination there too. So to answer your question, let's assume that you're getting ready to trade the European session. Okay, it's say 10 minutes before the open of the European session. So what I want to do here, I like to do a manual because I like that better. I want to click auto and I want to see where we're at. Okay, so let's assume for the purposes of this analysis on our chart that we're 10 minutes ahead of the European pit session open, and we want to try to find out what is a good manual value to trade the session with using the analysis we talked about. Let's wait for it to come up. Of course, it's going to take longer when you're doing the automatic. It's really going back. It's looking at every bar, looking at everything. So bear with me as it comes up. All right, so what we did is we rounded it up. We looked at it. You had a value here of 30. You take 1.25 of that. That's going to basically give you about 37 and a half. You can leave it at 37 or round it up to 38, either one. And that's a good starting point for a manual if you want to proceed that way. All right. Any questions? That's what I wanted to show for some of you. Some of you will be working with this and trading it. Others going to continue on doing what you're doing. KC says she likes it. Any other comments before we wrap up here? Again, this is a good way to trade. You don't overtrade this way. You have a lot of patience and discipline, and you're basically coming in at levels that are important levels that the institutions have established, either continuing or breaking. Yeah, Patty said always liked the algo bands, always liked the algo bands. All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap it up. That's where the big money goes. That's right, Jerry. Follow the big money. You'll never be on the wrong side. That's the way these markets work. Why fight them? You can't fight City Hall, right? Don't fight them. Go with the flow. As you see, as we came down here, this was a short entry through here. I didn't talk about the aggressive trade. The real aggressive trade is once you enter the band. If you first enter the band, right? If it's a short coming from above, when you first enter the band, you can fire the trade and place your stop above it. Okay. Of course, right here that would have backfired, but not a big stop. Can this be combined with the big bands? It can, KC. I mean, you can put this, and there's several, more than several members that are doing this. They're putting it up on their big band indicator as well, and they're looking for those levels that confluence. Absolutely. The more confluencing you have, the better off you are. So yes, yeah. Denton says it works very well that way, and I've talked to several other members who do that the same way. So you're even more selective. The nice thing about this is it's measuring the institutional algorithms on the individual market. So when you look at 6A or 6B or the Swiss franc or natural gas or crude oil, everyone is different. It's also nice because it's a living indicator in that it's not static. It's going to adapt every day. It's going to adapt to changing market conditions because depending on news events, depending upon world events, depending upon supply and demand, and all of the other factors that go into a market, it's constantly analyzing them dynamically in real time and adjusting to that. And you can see the adjustments are not dramatic from day to day. They're slow. Every once in a while, when you get a huge moving day, you start to get bigger adjustments or bigger adjustments. Okay, but that's it. So again, this is a really nice, profitable trading system. It works well with the octopus, and it works by itself. You could see if you were to look back on every one of these trade entries today, even without the octopus. If we go back to the open, okay, You had a little whipsaw here, whipsaw here, whipsaw here, but then you got on the right side of it here, short here, back to long, and then short. Now here's one thing that I always keep in mind. When you have, there's a big difference between an algo band here, here, and this one's stuck way out here, okay? When they're close like this, I like to use the preceding one. So in other words, this was your entry, all right? And I'm not really looking at taking a short entry here unless we really break below here or if we come above it again and then break. That's just me, okay? You can see how they're confluenced. But then once they're out here, they're pretty good standing alone. But still, even by themselves, trading that way, again, even if you had gotten long here, then a nice short entry in here, you're still with the short until it's long here. Here's a bit of a whipsaw, all right, and then back in. So it depends on what your tolerance is for number of trades. But again, if you use the octopus filter, one of these filters, it's going to cut down on that. You won't get as many trades. And you won't get as many bad trades either. Okay, this trade's working out well through here. It's easy to see visually too, right, Casey? Yeah. Okay, that's it. We're going to go ahead then and wrap up. We're had a good session, I think. So we'll see everybody tomorrow. Remember tomorrow, crude oil, going to roll that over to the April contract now in crude. So everybody should go ahead and get that put in, and we'll see everybody tomorrow. Okay. I can also, let me take a poll here real fast of everybody that's in the room here. Let me take a poll. Right now we're running the NASDAQ with the algo bands, okay? We're running the Russell by itself with the accelerator. We're running the crude oil with the accelerator as well. Do we want to maybe look at, I'm just throwing this out, do we want to see this analysis on all three of the markets tomorrow, on the ones we trade? In other words, have this set up. I can run the manual setup with this template tomorrow on crude, on Russell, and on NASDAQ if the consensus is to look at it that way. If not, I'll keep everything the way it is. So I'd like to see everybody weigh in on that, okay? If you think it's a good idea just for tomorrow to run these this template on all three, put in a Y. If not, you want to keep the status quo, put in an N, and we'll go with the majority rule tomorrow. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, Steven says he'd like to see a program that runs all of these. Yeah, that would be nice, but unfortunately. All right, well, 80% of you said yes. About 20% said no. Democracy at its finest. But the ones that said no, I can tell they're the strict constitutionalists. The strict constitutionalists. And I have to say, I'm in that category as well. I'm a strict constitutionalist. I firmly believe in the strict meaning of the Constitution. All right, here I'll have both running, and then we'll just refer to them back and forth. How's that? So, so Steven said, are you for the corrupt party or the stupid party? I'm not so sure at this point I can make a distinction between the two. I'm not so sure that I can see which is which. I can't. I really can't. That's true. That's spoken like a true politician. That's right. I think I said that before. A true politician, when they're not kissing babies, they're stealing their lollipops. That's a true politician. When they're not kissing babies, they're stealing their lollipops. All right. I forgot to turn the recording off here. We'll see everybody tomorrow. I'll run both. I'll have both and we can refer to them back and forth. Okay? All right, everybody. I'll have this posted, by the way, if you want to review it up on video. All right. Take care now. Bye-bye.